So welcome back everyone to another incredible episode of Chat with Dan here for today. I mean, what can I say? I mean, she's back. The incredible, the amazing, the badass, the superstar, the legendary, and even a superhero. Why not? Michelle? Michelle, how
Oh,
are you today?
that was such a crazy nice introduction. I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing fantastic. I mean, what better way to start up? Yeah, like what better way to have an incredible super evening, but also what better way to have an incredible badass start of the week than to be chatting again with someone as badass as you. You know what I mean?
Thank you. I'm so happy you think of me that way. It's been an honor to be back on your show after another album release. It's like great timing.
It's crazy, right? I think the last time we spoke, I was still doing, lives on Instagram, things like that. I remember.
hmm
So
Yeah.
crazy,
Now we're
crazy times. Now, if you are new to the channel, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, follow. It helps a lot. But also, on the description below, you're gonna find all of Michelle's social media. By this point, you should know why she's super badass. But in case you're not, I got you. So, without further more, let's begin. So, I want to start this whole conversation by throwing out the first question, right? Which is, for those who don't know who is incredible, amazing, the badass, the superstar Michelle, tell me, what inspired you to pursue music in the first place? Like, was there a defining moment or artist that made you realize, you know what, this is my passion now?
Wow, I love that question. I gave a very long-winded answer to this question back in the day when you interviewed me. So I'll bring back some of those pieces. But actually, I had a moment last night remembering the Super Bowl of 2017 when I watched Lady Gaga's performance at the
Hmm.
halftime show. And I was a student at Vanderbilt University at the time in the middle of, the library in a cold January winter in Tennessee, away from my hometown in Miami, Florida, where it's nice and warm during the winter. And I was in a really, really depressed state. And I'll tell you this, that there was a time when I just felt like I couldn't get my life to be what I wanted it to be. Like for like a long time. And I still, we all struggle, but for the longest time, music was always the thing that got me through those dark times. I was always listening to music, always singing music, always dreaming about music, just everything I just didn't want to do, I would just ignore and I would just like escape into music. So when I saw Lady Gaga's 2017 performance, I remember I watched it after the fact because I missed the actual Super Bowl. I watched it on YouTube and I remember just hysterically crying. So Lady Gaga, if you ever see this, I just want to tell you, you were an amazing turning point in my decision to pursue music. Now, the thing is I just didn't know the first thing to pursuing music. At the time, I had only studied operatic performance and a little bit of musical theater. I've always been a singer and a performer, but more of a choir kid, a theater kid, this kind of a thing. But when I wanted, my original goal was to be on Broadway. And when I learned that, Broadway performers were being asked to audition with pop style songs, that's when I decided to start to learn how to sing pop music. Now, I'd been listening to Lady Gaga since I was literally 10 years old. I remember just like having my headphones in, my little iPod, listening to iHeartRadio and her earliest hits. And I just remember thinking, man, like what a voice, what a voice. Her, Celine Dion, Barbara Streisand, those kinds of like really iconic female voices is what I actually always have been extremely inspired by. And so later on, I actually learned how to sing pop music by listening to her and fashioning my voice after her. So the very first pop song I learned how to sing was actually Million Reasons, which was on her Joanne album. And it was a song that I was obsessed with that like era of hers because it was her stripped down era. It was like her coming to the world as Stephanie, just being raw and real. And then that kind of preceded her role in the movie A Star is Born, which was another soundtrack that deeply, deeply resonated with my soul. So I would say that Lady Gaga and her music was like something that I always deeply resonated with, and her voice, her passion for music, her love for music, how she went to New York University, Tisch School of the Arts for a little bit. Like I wanted to go to NYU, but I ended up not going. There was like, that longing for I want to figure out how to do this and just not knowing how. And then what ended up happening for is I get a vocal cord injury called nodules, which is for anyone listening, it's the worst nightmare of any aspiring singer and I was 20 years old. I basically was silent for a whole summer and went within and I started to journal. And in my journaling process, because I couldn't talk, so I would just, I was like, I have I have to do something with my voice. So I would find my voice through journaling, and I would write poems. So what started out as writing poems began, or basically transformed into writing songs. And then I met my very first creative music partner in college. I don't know if I should say his name, I'll protect his privacy, but he was a rapper, and I met him at a party that I was actually singing opera at, and he was rapping at, and he asked me to be his music partner after that party, and that was the turning point. That date was, it was literally October 31st, maybe November 1st, because it was past midnight of 2018. And we wrote music for the rest of the month of November and December, and that we showcased at December 31st, 2018, at my annual New Year's Eve party at my community house, like at my house for my community. And that was a turning point for me, because that was basically like me reintroducing myself to everyone who knew me as the opera singer, the theater kid, to someone who now writes music and collaborates with a person that is the wildly exact opposite of me, musically and personality wise. We're basically polar opposites, but it worked. And it was the most liberating time of my life. And it's actually, that timeline is what has inspired most, if not all, of my songwriting since then. So I'm always kind of recounting and telling that story of finding my voice, coming back to my soul's truth with, my original single, The Sound of Your Voice, which I had released at the time of our first interview back in 2022. The Sound of Your Voice was actually about that night. So I remember just feeling deep resonance with this person, and this was the person that helped me find that confidence to do this for real. Now, a couple months later, I had put out, so in December, this was a crazy timeline, because November and December of 2018, I recorded this. It was like literally October, November, December. So like the last final quarter of 2018, I recorded my very first recorded project called Studio Sessions, which was not original music, but cover songs, and distributed that alongside a Christmas album of cover songs, all in December 2018. And the original track, the very first track on there, is A Million Reasons by Lady Gaga, or Million Reasons by Lady Gaga. And then I didn't, like, a couple months go by, and it's now April 2019, and I finally post the video that was recorded of me in the studio when I was recording it in, December 2018, in that timeline. I posted on my Instagram page, and then I'm basically discovered through that song, that song by Lady Gaga, that was the first pop song that I had ever learned how to sing. And I was basically discovered by my now team in Nashville that helped me basically tell my story and bring it to life through all these years, through all these songs. And it's really like what began it all was just the power of love. So the first single that I released last year in 2024, that kicked off my new album release season, for the debut album From My Soul to Yours, which came out in November 1st of 2024. So it's my latest release. That first song, A Million Stars, was the number one first song I ever wrote in Nashville with my team back in August of 2020. And it was literally about that whole concept of taking that journey and taking that first step of becoming who I am today. And that's where the hook of the song comes, and actually references the movie A Star Is Born, the one that Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper were in. And it says, "What does it take for a star to be born? Falling into love, and repeating that, because it wasn't about, being perfect. It wasn't about being an opera singer or a theater person. It was about falling in love. And what that meant for me was about surrendering to a higher power, which is this love, and allowing that higher power to just take over you and express itself through you." And that is exactly what, like, my musical legacy is about. That's like what all my songs are about. That's why the album is called From My Soul to Yours, because it's basically a proclamation of love from the soul to God, to everyone in the universe, and to the counterpart, to the beloved. And it's a love story. And so it really is. It all started with, that love that awakened the soul and awakened the voice. And it reminds me of this Bible verse that says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So all of these songs, all of this poetry comes from the heart, comes from the deepest depths of love in my soul. So it's very deep stuff, but that is the long story short of how I got into this. It really was, I loved music. I loved music a lot, and then I fell in love, and then I made more music about love. That's pretty much it.
What was it like? Like that first song, like that ever first moment, that first song you ever wrote or performed. Tell me, how did it feel putting your music out there for the very first time?
Wow, crazy, beautiful question. Wow, so writing the first song, which was A Million Stars, and then another one of the first songs were The Sound of Your Voice and Made to Be, which were what I released first in sequence and what we talked about at our last interview. But I'll never forget, like, I had a process, I had a strong vision going in because I knew that I had an opportunity at hand and I didn't want to blow it. I knew that, I felt like I was called to something higher, and I knew that I didn't want to waste this opportunity. So I spent all of so this basically the timing of this was actually during the COVID quarantine. So I remember spending that whole time indoors writing my poetry and writing my songs and accumulating my song titles over a period of about a year, and then getting them approved to be brought to Nashville to write with, professional co-writers. And I came in there with a very strong and clear vision of like, with this title, this is what I want to say, this is what I want to communicate, this is the vision. And I want it to sound like this, and let's get it. Let's rock. And that has been my process since the very beginning for every single one of my songs. And it was a little bit hard at first for me to find people that resonated with, my sort of like very specifically, what's the word, directness, because I'm a very direct person. I think what people are used to is that like the singers don't really write music. They don't they kind of come in and the songwriters write for the singer. But I wanted to have what I wanted to have written in my songs. It was like I really wanted this message communicated. I was like very obsessive about it. I was like now I'm a lot more chill when it comes to writing music, but like I always have a very clear vision, and usually it comes from the song title of like, this is what I want to say, this is what the message is, and it needs to be conveyed. And it needs to be catchy, needs to be beautiful, melodically and compositionally pleasing. I have very high taste, coming from a classical background. And I'll never forget, like, A Million Stars was the very first song we wrote, and it was a hit. But at the time, I was in such a low state of confidence that I didn't think that it was good enough. I felt like I was like, okay, that was a nice first try. Let's try again, And I basically sat on that song for 3 years and didn't do anything with it. And then when I started to compile the vision for From My Soul to Yours, I was like, you know what? I started listening to the song. And then I remember I was blasting it in my car, and I was actually going to church one day. And this friend of mine from church literally was like coming out, and he heard this song while I was blasting it in my car. And he was like, bro, is that you? I was like, yes. And they were like, are you kidding me? You sound like a superstar. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, I didn't think that song was good. I didn't think anyone would ever hear it. You know what I mean? And so I was like, wait a second. That's confirmation. I took that as a sign. So I bring it to my producers, the new guys that I worked with to help me bring out Coming Home. Because I didn't write it originally with them. I wrote it with a different producer originally. And I was like, guys, what can we do with it? And they turned it into the masterpiece that it is today. But we used the original vocals from that original songwriting session, which was only one take. So there's literally only one vocal take that exists of that song in history, in all documentation. And it's that one. And it's the one that made the final cut, which is wild. It is like one of those things where it felt like divine alignment. And it was the message of A Million Stars is basically a song about like, okay, like, even if you have to fail 1,000 times, miss a million stars, I'll meet you at the moon, meaning like I'm still gonna make it. Like, I'm still gonna get there one day eventually. We can't give up though. We can be anything. We could be limitless. We could be infinite. It was basically the song that ignited the journey of becoming the artist. and having something to say and being like, hey, like we can do what we said we were going to do. We don't have to hide in the shadows. We don't have to, just because we failed a bunch of times doesn't mean anything. We can keep getting up. We can miss a million stars, but we'll still get to the moon. And so it's like one of those songs about having like limitless faith, like almost crazy faith, like delusional faith, and a lot of passion and purpose driving the force, the engine behind all of these songs. So for me, songwriting is always about feeling the need to express something that I'm experiencing in my life, where it's like very much like a theater kid would, like when you're watching when you're watching a play. Well, what makes a play versus a musical? A musical is when the characters have to stop what they're doing and sing a song about what they are experiencing in the context of the show. So for me as a songwriter, I'm like, well, I'm experiencing a beautifully profound, delicious experience of life, and I feel the need to express it in song. And this is what I'm expressing. So the sound of your voice, same thing. It felt like that song is like the night that I met that music partner and felt like my life changed. You know what I mean? I needed to put it in a song. And then Made to Be, back then was about feeling like, I wasn't good enough. Like I really struggled with my self-image for many years, not feeling like I was enough. And I needed to see myself the way God saw me and change my whole self-concept in order to even keep going and even heal from my past and my traumas. There was a lot of trauma holding me back. There was the process of creating music for me was emotional and spiritual healing in order to do what I do. It was a journey of like from the very beginning, from like pen to paper until now, putting it all out, of just healing my soul. Like there's really no other way to say it. It was never for the money. It was never for the clout. It was never for the fame. Obviously, those things are supposed to come when you connect with people and the people connect with your music. But for me, it was always just about healing, like who I was and coming home to that self, that true self, which is why I named that first album Coming Home. So my whole brand is really just about truth, honesty, authenticity. That's why I didn't change my name. They wanted me to change my name, as artists always have a stage name. I was like, that's not my brand. My brand is being true to your true self. It's about being literally who God made you to be and like connecting with people at that true deep level, not having to hide behind masks anymore. Yeah, I wear makeup. Yeah, I like to get my hair and my nails done, but that's genuinely who I am. That's not a mask. You know what I mean? Versus like the pressures that, society puts on us to be these things. So for me, when I take pen to paper, it's because I have a message. It's because I want to convey something meaningful. Everything I want to do is meaningful. And I hope it resonates with people. I always pray that my songs, reach people in the depths of their soul, that helps them get through whatever they need to get through. Through my experience and through my story, I hope that they're inspired. Like, there was a time when I wanted to give up on my life. Like, there was a time when I was so depressed I couldn't get out of bed, and it really, really was like that for me. I had physical issues, I had mental issues, I had all of the issues. But then it felt like God called me out of darkness and was like, babe, I made you to sing, so like sing you shall, you're gonna, but not only sing, it's not just la la la. You're gonna sing some songs that are meaningful, you know. And so that's my process. My process is I always know what I want to say before we get to work. Then I have 1 to 2 co-writers that are geniuses. We sit together, we brainstorm, we collab, and then in 2 or 3 hours we have an amazing song. Then I bring it to then I record some scratch vocals, then I bring it to my amazing producers. They pump out a beautiful instrumental track. I practice my vocals, lay some background vocals down in my mind, and then I go to the studio, lay the vocals, lay the background vocals, bring it back to the producers. They mix it up, send it to my mastering engineer, put the final touches, and then voila, we got the song. Get some album art, or put it on the track list for a greater album release. And that's the process. So you master the process by being very detailed and being very much purpose led. If you don't have a strong purpose, it's very hard to even do anything. Like for me to be on social media and be posting all the time, like that was the most tedious task of this career. But it was like, but I have a strong purpose, so I'm going to do it. It's like going to the gym. Do I like going to the gym? Not really. Do I like lifting weights? No. But I have a strong purpose because my purpose is I want to be strong. I want to be healthy. So I'm going to do the things that are hard to get me to where I want to go. So that is what has driven me, is like that feeling of like what I'm doing matters. Your voice matters. And the thing is that I never felt like my voice mattered until I met that person that brought me into awareness that my voice mattered, that it was good, that I was good enough, that I was someone that God has called out of darkness and into the light to express the truth of the soul and the truth of the heart and love and stop spreading negativity, you know? So that's when I made my life about that, and I basically surrendered my old self and my old ego and all my distorted ways of being, everything changed. And I'm not perfect, but I'm definitely working every day towards, being more of God's vessel, which is basically my Instagram bio, a vessel of God's infinite love, eternally expressing through poetry and song. And it really always started with poetry. I was a poet before I was a songwriter. So that's a pretty long-winded story, but that's essentially my why and also my process of creating the art from start to
Totally.
finish.
And tell me, like, how do you handle criticism and, like the whole thing on putting yourself out there to the world?
For the most part, I feel like I receive a lot of positivity, and I feel really blessed for that. Because I pray a lot of protection over my music, my page, myself, So I feel like what you put out is what you receive. But, you always get some haters, and I just pray, it says, Jesus says like bless your enemies, just like send them love. It's not that big of a deal. You do need to develop thicker skin. But I'm really lucky that like I haven't really received like a ton of like craziness. So, yeah. I became a lot stronger on this journey. And also, I've always looked up to, like the stars that made it, long before I even entered the game. And I have a much deeper respect for them now more than ever, now that I know that I just have a taste of what they've done and gone through. And it is no joke. But I also, like, the longer that I'm on the journey, the more I realize, like, this is what I've been called to do as a soul. Like, this is my soul's, like, self-actualization path, because it's not about the doing, it's about the who you're becoming in the process of what you're doing. And I became something that I didn't know was possible for me only 7 years ago, And so I'm coming up on my 7 year anniversary this December of releasing music, and it's been a lot of ups and downs. But when you have love in your heart, when your heart is pure, it doesn't matter. Nothing else matters, because it's all about how you feel inside. Nobody could listen to your music and you can still feel happy. Your self-worth and your validation doesn't come from your Instagram likes, your Spotify following, or your monthly listeners, or even the money you make on music, which I don't make much right now because I'm still, on the come up. But, you know, but it is one of those things where like I know I'm successful because people have told, like, not a lot of people, but the people that have told me, Michelle, your music changed my life. To me, I define that as success. Like, your message, your story, you're inspirational. Thank you. Like, to me, that's all I needed. Like, I just needed to be like, you know what? I'm doing something meaningful with my life. If someone else is resonating with this, that means I'm serving them. And that means that I'm on the right track. So I'm not being a wasteful person on this planet.
Totally. And
So,
it's of course it's challenging whenever you are starting out, and you have like yeah, you have like those wonderings of how you're gonna put yourself out there, and things like that. But as I said, I mean, I think the more you are going through the process of whatever you want to pursue, eventually you're gonna start to find like your own style, like your own thing. It's understandable, of course, and when you're starting out, you will take pieces from multiple people you admire in order to kind of shape your own form, which is, I think most people do that, and that's fine. But of course, along the way, it's important for you to discover, for you to actually shape your own style. And whoever who appreciate that, sure, welcome. And those who don't appreciate it, welcome as well. Sure, move along and then continue moving forward. And that's just the way it is. You can't please everybody. I was like some time ago, I used to have like this necessity to actually please everybody I could, everybody I
yeah.
knew. But then
Yeah,
it's
not anymore. You just
exhausting.
gotta be true to you. I know
Totally.
someone true.
Totally, because it gets
Yeah.
super exhausting, and at some point you start to actually kind of lose your essence, like lose who you really are.
Yeah. And
And when
and
you,
that is really bad when you get to that point. I've been there.
talking a little bit about, this topic as well, tell me, like, how do you recharge or find inspiration when you're totally feeling creatively drained?
It's a great question. Wow. Well, for me, it's basically I go through like a 2 to 3 month postpartum depression after each like big album release cycle. And in those 3 months, I get like I get very emotional. I cry a lot. There's like an old self that dies, and then there's a new self that's birthed, like a metamorphosis type of a process. And then I'm like almost like well versed with it now. It doesn't make it easier each time it happens. I do self-care. I'll take some time to rest, take baths, do some acupuncture, maybe, I like taking walks. That really helps everything in the body. Eating healthy, just really like doing my non-negotiable self-care activities, yoga, exercise, strength training, dancing. Dancing keeps the creative juice coming and coming, though, I have to be honest. Like there are certain things that I do and like they're like programmed into my life, and it makes it so that I don't really lose that creative juice. I'm always being inspired, always. So, for example, just listening to the Grammy Award winning album, you know, Beyonce's album, like just like a couple of days ago was just enough where I just was like, wow, I'm super inspired. Listening to like just rewatching the 2017 Lady Gaga Super Bowl, like boom, I'm inspired. Like watching other artists do their thing inspires me so much. Taking a dance class, doing any type of different art, maybe photography, film, editing content, which I have to do all the time. Kind of remembering old versions of self, kind of going through the archives like a history major that I once was. And I get inspired by pretty much anything. Like I really do. Like I just it's for me it's about being like tuned in to life and just feeling like just like wow, everything is deep, everything is beautiful or not, and it just feeling very intensely like what message can I get from a flower? Like what message can I get from the sky, a tree? Like if I usually get words, and then with those words, I dance with the words. I play with the words in my head. I'm like a child, I'm like, okay, well, this is what we're gonna do now. And then we're gonna do this. And then and then I write it down in my journal, and then I pitch it to my team, and I'm like, guys, what do we think? Like, and then that process is just an eternal process of growing and playing and learning and just feeling freedom in your mind. And yeah, like let's say I'm having a bad day and I'm going down a terrible thought loop. I allow myself to cry. I allow myself to cry and express those horrific emotions. Then the next day I'm completely fine. Like it's just how I am, Like I'm flowy. I'm like water. I'm a water sign. So I just allow myself to feel everything very deeply and then create from it. So I like to be honest with you, I don't really lose creativity. It's something that is a part of me. It is something that is intrinsically, ineffably like there are times when I'm like, okay, well, I don't know what poem to write today. That's fine. Then you don't always have to be creative in the mediums you think you need to be creative in. You could be creative in praying for someone, the words that come through you. You could be creative in the food that you cook. You can be creative in the way you choose the YouTube yoga teacher that you're about to do a little 15-minute flow on, or you can be creative just thinking in your mind about what do I want to do today? Like, what is my to-do list? What do I want to create for the next month, the next quarter, the next year? That's all exercising your creativity. Dreaming about the future, even reminiscing on the past, just enjoying your experience of life because life is short. Life is very short. I lost some like three people in my life this last month alone, and it just really reminded me of like how fragile life is. One was an older person in my family, lived to be 89, 88, one of those, and another was a family friend who was 55. It was like a sudden death sort of experience. Don't really know the cause. And then the other one was actually a person I had known since kindergarten, someone my age whose birthday happens to be tomorrow. And I just want to like, send him and his family a lot of love because, it was very shocking to hear that a friend of mine who actually helped me early on in my career with my social media platform, he helped me build my a little bit of my following back in the day, like back in 2018, even 2017, no, 2018. And he was an artist himself. He was a painter. and also a creative mind, entrepreneur, thinker. And I just am inspired by people like that. Everyone that I know like that has inspired me in my life. And even the more logical people too inspire me, like the more like the lawyer friends of mine, and the businessmen, the CEOs, the finance guys, like, like those people inspire me too, because they're a whole different world. I don't understand their world at all, but I just get inspired by every person I meet. Like I try to see something beautiful in every person that I interact with, and just try to see God in everybody.
Totally. I think it's important to to those who either to those who are special to you that passed away, to make sure that you're kind of honoring their memory by keep pursuing what drives you. You know what I mean? I think when we are able to do that, we are actually honor them,
Mhm.
and we actually keep them close. You know what I mean?
Yes, totally, 100%. Like, hmm, absolutely. I'm getting emotional because I'm just like, there have been so many versions of myself that I feel like have died, but I'm still here. And I mourn and reminisce the old versions of myself, like on because it's like I associate those versions of myself with all the people and all the memories and all of the experiences that I feel like gave me the creative juice to be the artist that I am. You know what I'm saying? It's like my life's experiences made me who I am. And it's why I feel like I have this endless record of information to pull from to write music, and tell stories. And I feel like all humans can really do that when they really tap in, but some of us are afraid to really be vulnerable. And I think that the artist's gift is vulnerability and being able to really just share their self with the world. It's a very scary concept. You're not selling a product or a service. You're selling yourself. You're sharing yourself. Not even selling it because we're not really making money. We make money on merch and live performances, maybe. We're really, and maybe a little bit on streams, but we're really just like showing up every single day, like, hey guys, this is my story. Take it or leave it, Hope it resonates. So, very interesting. I remember in the beginning, I was terrified of. I was like, what am I doing? Why am I oversharing? Like, but then you get used to it after a while and you don't care anymore. And you do attract the real ones around you, like your real friends, and the fake friends go, and your social circle changes, but the one thing that stays the same is your connection to the creative life force that made you, which is God. So
Totally.
that that's where all my inspiration comes from.
Looking back at your journey, how do you feel you have evolved as a musician compared to where you started?
Wow, what a beautiful question. I think that I evolved. I basically broke all the rules of music and blended so many different genres and so many different influences. And I really created art that I was proud of. Because in the beginning, I felt like I kept missing the mark. I wasn't like hitting it. But now I really do feel like, okay, we hit it and we're only getting clearer and clearer the more we are on the journey. We're not missing the mark anymore. We're hitting the mark. We're hitting the nail on the head. We're getting there. We're getting closer with each new song, each new album, each new release, each new album art, each new music video. We're getting clearer and clearer. And that is a beautiful journey of coming into alignment. And I feel that I've become a lot more confident. I did not have confidence in the beginning. I've become confident. And confidence comes from like trusting God and like literally seeing yourself clearly, like literally like the message of made to be, like seeing yourself like not through your insecurities, but through like objectively like what God made you as like a biological creature, like this is what you are. These are your gifts. This is your soul energy, in terms of the energy that powers you to get through life, and your motivations, your inspirations, your desires, all of that. And just being honest and objective with yourself. So I feel like, and then confidence also comes from like doing what you say you're going to do consistently and following through, just always following through. Even when you don't feel like it, just do it, like the Nike saying. And then I would say that musically, I definitely feel like I found my true voice. Maybe in the beginning, I was trying to be too much of a belter, a little bit too much of like, trying to be a pop singer, you know what I'm saying? Instead of actually just resting into the voice and understanding like you are a pop singer. and a classical singer. You can sing anything, but in the beginning I was very compartmentalistic about it. I was like, well, this is this and this is that, And now I'm like, I can just enjoy the voice. I can enjoy what singing is, the art of making sound, translating breath into music. And I feel that also like my vocal training over the years of just like continuously practicing and doing all the technique work makes the creative flow a lot easier as well. It makes creativity channel through you when there's more space in the body and more finesse. And like it's kind of like when you're a violinist and you're able to really translate the music well. Because you know about the technique, you're not in your head anymore. You're not overthinking the muscle placements and everything. You're like, I'm just a vessel. I'm no longer in my body. When I'm singing, it's like I leave. It's like my ego, my lower self leaves, and I feel like my higher soul essence comes through, or even just God Almighty just comes through my body and expresses through me the breath of life. It's like it's a very esoteric and deep experience for me. It always has been because everyone, when they see me, they're like, this girl's like so short and like tiny. Like, how does that sound come out of her? They're like, wait, what? Like, that's you? Like, And I'm like, I feel you. Like, I don't get it either. Like, I get nervous. But it is just about being that lion and letting yourself roar, let yourself roar, find your voice, find your passion, and experience the love and the creativity that comes along with it. It's a joyful experience. I couldn't be anything else. I couldn't see myself doing anything else with my life if I'm being honest with you. I couldn't. I'm the happiest version of myself that I've ever been because I said yes to this true path for me and no to everything else. So,
And my last question, so we
hmm
can all enjoy and relax after an epic chat here. So here it
yes,
is. What do you think that could be the best title for this episode?
the rebirth of Michelle Langone.
Yeah, you want that?
Yeah, because
Sounds
like
like a
it's
plan.
I'm so different than the version of me that you last interviewed. So maybe something like that.
I'll take it. And
Sure.
at the end, what can I say? The fact that you're doing it, the fact that you keep pushing hard, the fact that you're working hard. I mean, that's incredible. I love it. I love the fact that you're pursuing what makes you happy. And I'm super sure there's people out there who sees you as a role model, but also who sees you as someone they can kind of regroup, who someone who can actually send them this positive vibes to it. And I think that's super important, especially right now in this crazy time we're facing in. The fact that we can rely on people like you who are not also talented, but also are sharing an incredible vibe to it. Who know, that are super positive to it, that actually care about the personal feelings to it. I think that's beautiful, and I'm super sure that our next conversation will be about the multiple thousand projects you are involved here and there and everything, because I do think that great things come to those who are honest by heart. And and besides you being super badass, you're incredible and super talented. So that's super
You.
cool.
You're so sweet. Thank you so much. That was very nice.
Absolutely. I do want to thank also those who stayed the whole episode. Let us know what you think in the comments below, but also on the description below, you're gonna find all of Michelle's social media platforms, everything. By this point, you should find out why she's super badass, right? So let's follow her. Let's keep making her viral. Hashtag Team Michelle. And again, thank you for making this happen. Keep shining out there. Keep kicking ass. Keep being super badass. And I'll be seeing you in the next one.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right.